So they added the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic to their group chat strategizing war plans.
You could have stayed in for the whole like 4 years of the Trump term if you wanted to, and then just published like everything.
This story was too good not to make a little bonus episode out of. Hello, everyone. We said that we would take a break, but we are in
Right.
fact doing a special episode for you because we just missed you so much.
Yeah, this is episode 12, or kind of like 11 and a half, because we're going to do a shorter, condensed episode, really just hitting on like one topic. And just wanted to preface, if I seem like really low energy or delirious, I ran a marathon this morning and I'm exhausted, but we're here for you to deliver our commentary because we know that everyone wants to hear what we have to say.
I know Colin had texted me like a couple days ago and he was like, "How would you feel about doing a little bonus half episode just about Signalgate, this one topic?" And I was immediately like, "Yes, this is a crazy news story. We have to talk about it." And now we're here and it's the middle of the day for both of us, which never happens. Like there's sunlight out for both of us. And that's fun. So I'm pretty ready to get into it.
Yeah, so this story kind of broke beginning of the week, and I kind of thought it was gonna go away really, really quickly, but then it turned into a whole week-long thing. So how did you first hear about it when it happened?
I first heard about it through social media. I think I'd seen a meme or something of the sort on either Instagram or TikTok, and it said something like not even SNL could dream of this, and it was a meme about like texting the wrong person or something. And I knew how to do with politics, but I was like, what happened? So I looked it up and I was like, oh, so they added the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic to their group chat strategizing war plans. How did you hear about it?
Yeah, kind of same. It was probably social media or like my work laptop gives like breaking news updates, and sometimes they're kind of very clickbaity, so I just ignore them. And this was one of them. I popped up like breaking news, and I looked at it, but I was like, this doesn't really, in my opinion, it didn't like reach the threshold of breaking news, and boy, was I wrong, because then it really really spiraled from there. And I'm actually a little bit surprised because I feel like I generally have like fairly good judgment about like what stories are gonna, like endure versus die really quick. So yeah, I'll have to rethink my my strategy there because this one proved me very wrong.
I thought it was a joke at first. I know that we've both mentioned something like that. I kind of had a similar reaction in that I thought it was funny. I thought it was kind of crazy, but I didn't realize that it would kind of blow up into what it is at the end of the week. I mean, now it's Sunday. I forgot what day did this break? Like beginning of the week,
It's like
definitely.
Monday, I think.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
people are still talking about it. It's like six
It's
days
being
later.
called like the first scandal of Trump's second term,
Yeah,
which
that's crazy to me because I feel like he's done a lot more scandalous things. I don't know, maybe being anti-constitutional. I don't know.
And
Um,
Trump wasn't even directly involved in this particular, he wasn't in the chat. So I don't know if this really qualifies as like Trump's scandal, but obviously anything happening in his administration kind of filters back up to him.
Somebody had commented on one of the videos that I saw in my algorithm, something like, this is like Watergate level scandal. And I was like, is it? Like, I just didn't think
I've
that
heard
it
it
was
called Signalgate, but
quite
other than
true.
that, I don't think it really is the same.
I think that's kind of an insult to those journalists who worked really hard on that. And I think that Goldberg struck gold in being added to this group chat. I think I texted Colin something like, I can't even imagine the adrenaline of being Jeffrey Goldberg and receiving those notifications. I think first I would think it was fake. I'd be like, there's no way. I think I would tell people within my staff and they would be like, Abby, no, that's not real. And then obviously the bombs went off and he was like, okay, wait, this is real. And I just can't even imagine the adrenaline. Like as a journalist, I think that I've I'm definitely somebody who gets super hyped up about breaking news. It was always that way within USD and within the Vista. I was always jumping on those opportunities the most to be the first pe person, the only people to break a story and have that point of view is so, I just can't even imagine the adrenaline.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this was a huge story, so for him to have the exclusive on it, there was some talk of like, is he going to publish the full transcript of all of the text, or is it just going to be little blurbs that he's like willing to share? So initially he had said like, I'm not going to publish the full thing because presumably like national security could be at risk and that wouldn't be right. But then a bunch of commentators I listened to are like, oh, he's going to publish the whole thing. Like if he's a journalist worth his salt, we'll get the full transcript. And then that's exactly what happened. I think The Atlantic got like the exclusive on it, obviously, and published the whole thing.
Did you read his initial article?
Not really. I was just more getting like secondhand info about it. Did you?
I tried to, but I don't subscribe to The Atlantic. And so when I click like read more, it was like create a membership. And okay, guys, I do subscribe to news. I subscribe to the Times, Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post. So I'm still supporting like news subscriptions and that model. But yeah, I'm not willing to subscribe to all of them. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what? I guess I'll just continue to listen to my secondhand sources.
Yeah, I'm only subscribed to the Washington Post, so you got me beat. But I like the New York Post a lot, but I don't really, I don't have a subscription to them. But yeah, so I was gonna ask you if you had been Jeffrey Goldberg, I know you said you'd be obviously really excited, it's an exclusive and you would have jumped on it, but like is there anything you would have done same or different than what he did?
I would have stayed in the group chat longer. Good on him for leaving because I don't think I would have left unless they noticed me. I'll be honest. Like, I, Colin, you know me, and like maybe most of our listeners are our friends, you know me too. And there is nothing more exciting to me than getting that inside scoop. And I don't know. I just think that's crazy that he left so early when I just feel like there was like somebody, I want to say it was Pod Save America, or maybe it was, I don't know. I was listening to a lot of different podcasts about it, but somebody had called out and said it felt like it was missing that third act. Maybe it was NPR. And I totally agree with that. Like,
Yeah.
he left too early, in my opinion. What about you?
No, I agree. I think like this, I don't know, but there's like the moral question of like, is he, well, obviously he's not allowed to be in the chat, but like on ethical grounds, as a journalist, I think he's well within his right. I mean, he didn't do anything to be added. Like it wasn't like he was finagling and he somehow like got in through a back channel or something. Like he was added, and that's
Like,
the other big thing that we're still trying to figure out is like who in the group chat, this national security conversation attacking the Houthis, who added him into it. But we don't know that yet, but there's speculation. And no, I totally agree. I would have stayed until they started talking about like not that what they were talking about wasn't substantive, but like you could have stayed in for the whole like 4 years of the Trump term if you wanted to, and then just published like everything.
I'm sure they would have noticed. I just would have stayed until they kicked me out, I think. And I don't know, because
But
is
okay,
that
but if they had noticed that he was in there, they wouldn't have wanted to fess up to it.
true?
So like he would have gotten away like scot-free even if they did notice like, oh damn, Jeffrey Goldberg's in here. Because
I
they
was
wouldn't
think
have told that.
I was reflecting on my own journalistic morals, I guess, when this was coming out because I mean this question has prompted my thoughts about it too, but I was remembering times when I thought to myself, am I going too far in my journalistic like I guess our advisor would call it your killer instinct type thing. Our advisor, guys, like for the people who do know her, she has a very large killer instinct. Like she's like
It's a killer
killer
that
through
kills
and through.
boys.
Yeah, she is a killer through and through. And I think I have a good amount of that killer instinct, but less than her. Like I think that there are some times when I'm like, okay, wait, I don't think that this person should be held accountable for this, and that when it's going to affect their future. In terms of like student journalism,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. I was reflecting on some of those times and the specific scenario that I remembered where I was like, I think we should do it. I think we should publish this was when we found out who won the ASG election before ASG had published it. ASG stands for Associated Student Government at USD. And basically, I had a class with a bunch of ASG kids because I was a poli sci major as well. And they were talking about who had won the presidential election. And it was before that they had announced it, but they were discussing it and I was right in front of them and I overheard them talking about it. So I texted our exec group chat and I was like, "You guys, I think that this is a prime opportunity for the Vista to publish some breaking news." And it was at the end of our senior year for the next year. So we had ended up, Colin was the editor in chief, so I was like, "Come on, Colin, like we should do this. We should do this."
I
And
punted it to the
yeah.
next.
He gave it to the next EIC who said no. And I understand why she said no, but I think if I was in her position or if I was in the news editor's position, I would have done it just because, like, I guess you could make the argument of like the burnt bridges, but there's no way like ASG has to respond to you when it comes to these stories. So I don't know. I think and it wasn't like a terrible scandal type thing. It was just getting on the news before they released it. Like I didn't think it was anything bad, and I would have done that.
Yeah, I thought when you said you had an example, I thought you were going to talk about when we figured out who the school mascot was and we wrote an
That was
expose.
another one I thought.
We'll tell that story another time
Yeah,
on a
that's a
long
lot.
episode. That's a whole episode in and of itself. But anyway, yeah, so to your point about the kill or be killed instinct, I feel like I also have it, but I'm pretty reluctant to exercise it. And there's been times when like yeah, like we have a scoop or we have something, and I'm just like, man, the personal like weight of it kind of gets to me, and I kind of tend to hold back. I'm very kind of like conservative, like you said, if it's writing about students and they're really young and they're just in college and like figuring out life for the first time, like I don't know that crucifying students is like the way to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a scoop on like our school's biggest story of the whole year, which was being reported in like national outlets and stuff. We had an inside scoop, and there was a huge moral qualm about whether or not to do it. And I mean, ultimately, we decided no, because this was like really a potentially life-altering, ruining story. So, yeah, that's all I'm gonna share about that. But
Yeah,
um,
I think it's good that we gave grace to our students versus our advisor is much I don't want to say older, but she's definitely more like old-fashioned than us. And I think that she viewed our journalism as just like and it is real journalism. It's real journalism, but I think that she viewed like some students as actual politicians sometimes as like, okay, girl, you gotta chill just a little bit. Like, we're only 19. Like, it's okay.
Yeah. Well, so I mean, yeah, the old school style journalism is like you said, it's kill or be killed, and if it bleeds, it leads. So anything that's like gonna, as long as it's factual, if it's a hard-hitting story and sometimes like violent, if like death is involved, or like if it's a really heinous like scandal, then that'll usually run on the front page because not only does that support like the business model of especially in print, but I mean it's like the sensible thing to do to put the most important stuff first. That's a huge thing about journalism. So
Hmm.
I totally understand why Jeffrey Goldberg went ahead and published it as an exclusive. And if he is he the editor in chief of the Atlantic?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of his duty to go forward with publishing it if he's just handed that big of a story. Um,
Yeah, I
he's
would lose respect for a journalist if they didn't, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's not a student. He's like like he's been in that position forever. And so the other thing I wanted to raise with you is, so obviously we don't know who added him per se, but um, have you heard anything about like the speculation around that?
Yeah, I've been hearing people questioning who added him and stuff like that, and like how it could even click his name, I guess. I was trying to figure it out and being like, okay, like maybe he's under JG or like I don't really know who they thought it was, but I couldn't really figure out who they could possibly think it was. Out of the people who I saw were in that group chat. I mean, like I guess I don't know, JD Vance, but then JD Vance was already talking in it. And I don't know, it's a pretty catastrophic mistake on their part. Um, and I know that people have been comparing it to like specifically the right. The right has been like saying things like everyone adds people to the wrong group chats, chats like that. And it's true. Colin and I have a few stories about that too that we'll probably get to. But what about you? What are your speculations about how he got added, maybe who added him?
So like I had heard it was Mike Walsh who added him. Obviously, I don't have any insider knowledge of that um at all, but that was who was being floated around, and like Trump was even stepping in to defend Walls as if he was the one who had added Goldberg. And people were really getting up in arms about like, well, why would someone in the administration even have Jeffrey Goldberg's contact information? But to me, like I understand it. I
I
think
understand that too.
politicians in the media oftentimes are like working very closely, if not working together on things. And I mean, ideally, there should be like a very clear delineation and separation between the jobs that each of them is doing. But like sometimes you have to have relationships with people like in DC if you're going to be a politician. You have to build that over time. And so it's not surprising to me at all that anyone in that group chat might have had his contact information if that was how he ended up in the chat and get added.
Totally. I don't think it's bad at all if they have each other's contact information. Like we've referred to journalism is often, or the media is often referred to as the fourth estate. So it only makes sense to me that these people have each other's contacts. Like, not only that, I get that as a fourth estate, you're supposed to hold these people accountable and stuff like that, but it's also about relationship building in terms of getting that information because if you just are attacking somebody all the time, they're not going to want to reveal that information to you. So it's a push and pull, and I don't think that anyone should be bashing people for having their contacts when that is how they get the information, like they're information gatherers.
But people were definitely reading into it and saying like, oh, just the fact that he has Goldberg's information means like maybe he's been leaking to the Atlantic or like he was planning to leak to the Atlantic or, like something like that. I don't know. I don't see any evidence of that. So I don't totally get like the dogpiling on him for just for having information. But yeah, adding
Mhm.
him to the chat, that's the original sin. Well, actually, no, there's another original sin, which is that they were using Signal at all, which
Yeah.
people, people are mad about that. So what do you think about that?
I'm also like, why are they doing such serious business over Signal? Like, I don't know. I definitely understand the gripes that people have with that as well. I made a joke to Colin and I was like, this is further teaching me that there is no way I would ever do such serious business over text, over email, over anything. Um, I think that there are those emails that can be meetings, but also the meetings that need to be emails. You know what I'm saying? Like, I definitely think that this should have been a meeting, at least a Zoom call, maybe a phone call, not any type of text message string or anything like that. I think that that was their mistake too.
Yeah, well, like Signal is supposedly, I mean, it's like a,
Doesn't it delete messages after a little bit or something like that? I know it's protected.
yeah, I just know that it's like, I think encrypted is the word that they
Yeah.
use. Like, it's a secure platform, but it's independent of like any kind of government. I think a privately owned company. Yeah, I might be wrong about that, but so people are saying like, well, they shouldn't be talking about anything related to government on that app. They should have their own like channels of communication. But I'd also heard that apparently they occasionally use Signal like during the Biden administration. So I don't think it's like I don't think it's like completely damning to just the Trump administration if in fact Signal is a problem or like they shouldn't be using it.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking to myself, because I think one of the people that I was listening to was talking about Signal more specifically, and they were talking about how Signal is like a lot of journalists and a lot of different government officials will use it. And I was like, wait, should I like download this? That's what that was my thought. I was like, oh, if I'm gonna be serious about being a information gatherer, journalist, whatever, maybe I should get in on this and somebody will accidentally add me to it. A group chat. Can you imagine how crazy that would be? Like a
So
23-year-old girl from a little independent, washed up media who comes from the Vista leaks a story like that. No one would believe me. No one.
I've got a couple journalists in my contact information, so I don't know. It could happen. Like there could be slip-ups, there could be kerfuffles. Which, speaking of, we wanted to talk about our own history or past with there were some Fox headlines being like, oh, anyone could have made this mistake by adding someone into the group chat. Like, so Abby, have you ever done something like that in your time?
Yes, I'm notorious for texting the wrong people wrong things. Never to the extent that I was like embarrassed or anything like that, but within the work sense, I remember at the Vista, the news editor and I at the time were tag teaming a story about the Carl. We can maybe I'll link it in the bio. Yeah, we'll link it. And it was a pretty like we had the lead on that story and no other like San Diego outlet was leaking that. I remember,
A crowning accomplishment, honestly.
yeah, I was so proud of our news editor for that one too. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't San Diego outlets quote us?
Well, eventually, yeah, it got picked up by other outlets after we had published it. So what, like, whether or not they got it from us, I'm not sure, but they caught on later after us.
Yeah, anyways, that's besides the point. Just wanted to humbly brag for a second. Um,
It's
but
really
I was
unbelievable brag, but yeah.
I was on an email thread with our news editor at the time who was taking the lead on the story, which I was assisting her with, and the PR relations person of USD. Is that like the right PR media lead? And
Something
how
like
it
that.
worked for us within the Vista is we always had to go through her to get quotes from the university or from anybody who was higher up. So we went through her for like public safety, for our president, stuff like that. And our news editor had me CC'd on things because I was the associate editor, so I was helping her out with it and kind of guiding her in terms of what to ask. And I was trying to respond to just her, and it was kind of probably a joke, and it was like, yeah, that's BS or something like that. But I had accidentally replied to the news editor and the PR relations thing. And I think I'd said something along the lines of like, yeah, ask her again or like dig deeper. So I wasn't actually um saying anything too damning, but I remember being like, oh my God. And you know how on email you can, if you notice it right away, you can undo send?
Mhm.
And I did that. So, um, unless the PR media relations person was on her email refreshing, like waiting and looking at it right away, I'm sure that she has an assistant or some sort who does those things like the other people in PR at USD. But yeah, I remember being like,
Yeah.
oh God, like and I was telling Colin, like my mistake was honestly not just texting our news editor or email, I wouldn't email her, but like you know what I'm saying, like contacting her separately. I don't think that was a slippery mistake on my part when the email thread obviously had her on it.
We had a lot of group chats, so it could get kind of confusing. So I only texted the wrong one once, but the content of the message that I sent to like the full team was kind of funny because we were all on the exec team. We were over 21, and we would be in the newsroom really, really late. And so we would sometimes after everything was like published and after the final PDFs were sent out for printing sometimes we would go out. They had this little like bar in at USD. It was called O'Toole's, and so sometimes we would just go downstairs after publication or whatever and get some drinks. And so I was texting, I was texting like kind of jokingly to. I was trying to hit up the exec team, just saying like, "Oh, drinks on one of our friends tonight," like as a joke. And it accidentally went to the full like I don't know 30 or so
Like, yeah,
people.
the full staff. Why were
Yeah.
we? I don't even remember why we were making that joke though. Something must have happened. where we called out like the web editor at the time, like because your message was like, drinks on her, but I don't remember why. Like I can't place why that happened.
Yeah, who knows? But I also, okay, so none of these examples are particularly egregious, which is good because we never really had any like big internal miscommunication problems. So I'm actually like I'm proud that we didn't because we were, students at the time. Anything can really happen. But yeah, I also had a similar thing with you, with our PR person, where I was trying to message our opinion editor, giving her like guidance on how to, I was say like handle PR, like how do you approach sending them an email and word it in a particular way where they can't like wiggle out of things because that's literally their job. So I was in not so gracious terms explaining what PR is and how they work. And then I had a moment where my heart dropped into my stomach after I sent the email because I was worried that just by mentioning it might like add on our PR team into the communication. But luckily it didn't. But I had like this oh crap moment of like this was early on when I was EIC, so I was like, I'm cooked. It's over. Like I'm 1 week in. Like,
Those little panics that we had in the beginning specifically, I think definitely shaped us
oh
throughout
yeah.
the year for sure. Like all those little mistakes and stuff, those little oh shoot moments, were so essential. So, it could have been worse. Um, I will say though, I don't think that the Trump admin should be so easily forgiven for adding Jeffrey Goldberg to the like our
Like
little fun student stories are
the
not the
reason,
same, I
yeah,
don't think.
the reason I don't think they should be forgiven is because like we're sitting here airing out all of our dirty laundry, and they have yet to like no one has really owned up to it. No one has really been like, oh yeah, I was the one who added him, or I was the one who started the Signal chat, and like that was not what we should have done, and we're gonna investigate. Like they could do their own PR spin on it and be like, we're gonna investigate to the fullest extent how this happened, and we're gonna make sure it doesn't happen again. Like that's all you have to say. But no one has really taken that responsibility. They get very defensive about it. They get very like, this is not a big story. And yeah, I just think they should own it, just like we literally just did. So,
Yeah, so maybe they should learn something from us. Um, well, I did you see Trump's response to it? I think he had said something like, "Oh yeah, it's not confidential information," or he kind of pretended that he didn't know about it at first, and then he kind of was like, "Oh yeah, it's not confidential. I don't like the." I think he said something like, "I don't like the Atlantic though," which is right up his alley of his
that's peak
responses.
Trump right there. That made me laugh. That's
It's
funny.
so Trump of him. He wasn't even
So,
in the group chat though, which is like we were
yeah,
talking like why? What do you think about that?
I mean, I can spin it like one of two ways. I think she's probably not involved in like every single decision that happens, and that's why they have the cabinet so they can delegate. So I'm not like shocked he wasn't in the group chat, but it did have pretty much every other high-ranking cabinet member in defense and national security plus JD Vance. So you would think, yeah, like he should have presumably been in that chat as well. Like he was probably communicating around the conversation, but I had the same question. Why wasn't he just in the chat too?
Yeah, I thought that JD Vance's texts and his responses, I know that Colin and I always talk about like giving these people grace when they definitely don't deserve it. But you can kind of see his anti-Europe approach within the text. Like he was um kind of against certain things, which he's outwardly said too. So there's that. Did you have any opinions about that?
Yeah, so like when it was like Tuesday and this was like the second day of the story or something, I was still kind of hung up on I thought that they might have done this intentionally. Like we talk about the strategy behind a lot of the things that like the Trump admin does and they're very like image conscious and so I was thinking maybe in some weird way this was intentional, where they wanted those specific text messages to leak because it might like make JD Vance look really tough on Europe, and then they can use that as leverage against Europe to be like, look how like we're this is our policy and we're consistent about it, even in our private messages. Like, so I thought that there might be something like that behind it. But by like Wednesday, Thursday, and this was dragging on and on in the press, I was like, it probably just was an accident because it made them look bad, not
And
really. They,
again, they're not owning anything.
yeah, yeah.
Have you seen any? I would, I'm, it's so funny because when stuff like this drops and like people are referring to it as like Trump's biggest scandal, I think to myself, oh my God, I'm so lucky that I'm not Caroline Levitt right now.
Yeah, so I had seen that like the press corps was kind of coming after her for it, like as they should, that's their job. But did you see her actual conference at all, or like how she was addressing it?
No, I didn't. I saw, I probably should have looked more into what she said. I kind of just thought to myself, like, wow, I wouldn't want to be her. What did you see about her? What did she say?
No, I didn't watch it either. I just remember like scrolling past it or something and same exact thing. Like I feel like I think that quite often actually. Like I'm glad I'm not her.
PR.
Well, I'm glad I'm not PR, but I'm glad I'm not Caroline Levitt specifically because it's such a I don't know, it would just be like hard to defend, to always be in defense mode, but then to like defend things that are very like no one is really in disagreement. I think everyone thinks like this is a bad look and they should fix it. There's, a range of people people's reactions might be stronger or less strong. Like, I think the Democrats are really seizing on this as an opportunity to, it's kind of like their first hit on Trump that they've had in his whole term, really, the first like punch that's landed. So I saw the story dropped on the day when there was like a national security congressional hearing, I think. And so they were really grilling like Tulsi Gabbard and one of the other ones. I want to say Ratcliffe on this story. Like they were trying to really grill them. And um, so the Democrats are, taking advantage of this opportunity.
As they should. I am trying to see like what the Republicans have been saying besides like the intense, Trump loyalists who are like, duh, like people be adding wrong people all the time, like why are we punishing them for this? But sometimes I think that the silence says enough. Like when people aren't able to defend their I guess the people they represent or critique them, then that is its own message to me.
Definitely. And I just think like we kind of hit it in the middle of the episode, just like take ownership over it. Anytime there's a crisis situation or a miscommunication, like that little spiel that I gave is literally all that you have to say. Like we're investigating it to the full extent and we'll get back to you on this how it happens so it doesn't happen again. That covers your butt on like pretty much any, I mean, obviously you actually have to then go forward with the investigation and actually do what you're saying you're going to do, but just saying that as like a brief blurb would have kind of prevented the pile on that happened. And another person who was piling on was Hillary Clinton. She wrote an op-ed, I think, for the New York Times,
Uh-huh.
and she was just criticizing like, Trump's administration so far, but like more specifically this miscommunication issue. And
I
that
think
did,
that's kind of ironic.
oh, it was so ironic. Yeah. I
I didn't read that. I didn't even see that, so maybe I'll read it after this episode. What was she saying?
I don't remember the specifics, but she was kind of just like chastising them. Hillary, I don't know.
Hillary,
The
dot dot
silence is
dot.
deafening right there. Yeah, sometimes she just kind of like gets online to chastise. Like she did that when the FAA was having problems and she was coming after like Sean Duffy and maybe rightfully so, but in that case, like I think she's allowed to criticize transportation secretaries, but
Totally.
not not using a private messaging app when that's literally her big scandal
That
from
is
well,
like literally what people associate with her, so that's so
yeah.
funny that she did that. I had no idea. I'm gonna have to look that up because that is so ironic of her.
No, I pulled it up. So I went on YouTube after I saw like she was criticizing the Trump admin for this. I went back and like looked at an old Hillary clip where she's explaining her in a press conference her email scandal. and someone asked her about like using bleach bit to clear her server or like to wipe the server, and she's like, "What? You mean like with a cloth?" And I'm like, "Girl, literally just like stick to the PR script I literally just said, and you're fine in 90% of cases."
Oh my gosh. Well, I wonder if people will still be talking about this next week.
I kind of hope not. Like I'm just kind of over it, but it is a big deal. So, what do you think they
Yeah.
will be?
I don't know. I think that the news cycle is so intense that it'll probably be washed out by the next time we do a real full episode. But I mean, this story was too good not to make a little bonus episode out of, so I'm glad we got the time to jump on and talk about it.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason we wanted to do an episode after all about it is because I don't think it will go. I could eat my words again, but I don't think it'll go into next week. So if we had just skipped over it, would like we wouldn't have gotten to speak on it at all. My only parting thought on the whole thing, it was kind of comedic, but there was a little like BuzzFeed quiz going around. It wasn't actually BuzzFeed, but it was like in the style of BuzzFeed. And it was like, which member of the group chat are you? And
Shut up.
this was going around at my work, and I took it, and I got Tulsi Gabbard, which makes sense. I feel like I have an affinity for her, and I think she's very like rational and chill. But the other members of that group chat not known to be rational and chill. So
Oh my God, I have to take that quiz.
yeah, I'll try to send it to you, and
Okay.
listeners should look into that too. It's funny. It was hilarious, just the way that it was like structured. You'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything else to talk about either. I'm so glad that we fit it into our little 40 minutes. We have like 2.5 minutes left of our Zoom, but good job. We stuck to our work-life balance boundary.
Yeah, we had a hard boundary, just one Zoom call, not two, which we usually do two and splice them together. So, yeah,
Okay. Washed up, out.
step out.